Mr. Lewis, you're muted.
Earth would we play that? I know what Robert was thinking because he's going to show the dichotomy between what the Democrats said before and what the Democrats say now.
There we go.
Right? That's what's going on. I figured it out, Robert. Um, can't have that knucklehead on there. But anyways, I'm not biased at all. I have no bias whatsoever. You know, we love all cabal members equally. Uh, folks, welcome to SBG News and Views. My name is Louis Herms, and my co-host today is Robert Imbraeli. We have a fantastic guest on today, Shawn Williams, and he's from Mayhem Solutions Group. Does incredible work. I had a long conversation with him when I was in Phoenix a few weeks ago. I'm so thrilled to have him on here. Victor Avila was scheduled to be on. He got stuck on 2 appointments. He's sad to not be here, but we're going to have him back on a little bit later. But this is going to be phenomenal. I've talked to at least 10 to 15 people that claim they know all about the border, and then I was not enlightened in the least bit until I talked to Shawn. So it'll be fun to have him on. Folks, if you want to find everything we do, just go to screwbiggov.com. While you're here, it's very important to share, do all of the things. We know what the effery that's going on with Rumble. Monday we lost 200 followers. Yesterday we lost 200 followers, and I know you guys will always pick up the ball. So go check to see if you're still subscribed. We know the game. I don't think it's Rumble. It's maybe Attacked. I don't know. Anyways, we know the game. Go see it, and you're going to go, oh, gee, they unsubscribed me again. Just resubscribe. So at least we can maintain what we got and share. And Robert, why don't you tell them where they can find you, but even more importantly, where they can find all the clips of the show.
We have all the clips of the shows and also many other clips that don't make it to the shows on Telegram. We put them up on the Renegade Media channel, and it's just go to Telegram, t.me/Renegade Media, or look up at Renegade Media and on Telegram and you'll find it. Or you can email me, robert@renegademedia.tv. Lewis, good to see you, my friend. Glad we can kick this show off in style today with Mr. Billy C, huh?
Yeah, that lovely guy.
Could you? I couldn't believe it when I saw that. It's like, oh my gosh! He's like, this is everything Trump is talking about.
Yeah, of course, it's whatever works. But then again, in 2000, I believe it was it 8 or 2004? Nadler was complaining about using Dominion machines for voting. So,
yep,
you know,
and so was Pelosi. Pelosi too was complaining and saying that the elections
whatever fits their narrative.
Yeah.
Hey guys in chat, I know you're keep mentioning the background noise. It's gonna have to stay. Our man here, Mr. Mayhem himself, just happens to be in a place with there's some background noise, so it is what it is.
Sorry about that.
No, it's not your fault. Hey, Robert, why don't we get in some news and then we'll bring Shawn in with us.
Sure, Shawn, if you want to mute yourself just for the moment,
okay,
that'll help with the background noise. Thank you. Yeah. So the border is the big story. There's no question. I mean, this show could not have been a better time to talk about the border. Biden. Yep.
And Trump went to a place, I believe he went to Eagle Pass, where there's almost 600 that just crossed yesterday, if I recall.
Yep.
So is this intentional juxtaposition? You almost kind of have to think it is, but the reality though is there is bad people crossing. No matter if you want to play the white hat, black hat game, whatever it is, it's the truth is bad people are crossing the border. It's organized. I think it has something to do with the UN. I've talked about it before. We've interviewed people on the border from Sudan and Chad and Guatemala, you name it. They're all fighting age men. Although I hear a bunch of women are coming across right now. Isn't it crazy?
It's crazy, yeah.
Just amazing. Let's bring Shawn on here and we'll have a conversation about this.
You want to introduce Shawn?
How you guys doing today?
Hey, Shawn.
Yes, Shawn. I did already a little bit, but Shawn Wilson from Mayhem Solutions Group, but he's right there on the border most of the time or often. I can't give away too much, but he's integral in fighting this war. I'll just say that.
Okay, perfect.
Yes. So we're doing a lot of things. I currently have guys in Texas right now. They left the other day to go down there, and I was on the border last week in Arizona. I'm sure you're seeing all the news reports with the videos and all that. All that video is from my intelligence team collecting on the border and showing what's actually going on. We try to encourage all our elected representatives and people that have an interest in what's going on the border to go out with us and not with Border Patrol, because Border Patrol takes you to a sanitized version of what's going on in the border because it's safe and cozy, and they don't have to worry about engagements or people, showing up in the background and seeing things that they don't want you to see. We take you to the places where it needs to be seen, the action where, there's armed cartel guys, there's action on the other side of the border. There's a lot of smuggling going on, drugs and people. So we take you to the bad areas of the border so people can get a visual of what's happening and not just hear it, because people in the United States are very visual creatures. They want to see what's going on. They don't want you to tell them. They want to be able to feel it and see it and smell it. And that's what we try to do, is take them and immerse them in what's really going on the border so they have an idea and an understanding of what's really happening.
So you mean you don't take them where the border wall's sealed up and looking really good and, everybody's eating ice cream with caramel? That's not what you do?
No, I take them to the places where the cartel's poking AK-47s through the fence line, and they're looking at us with binoculars and high-powered cameras and watching everything we're doing and trying to document tags. And they have, the areas where I'm taking it. We've seen RPG-7s on the border. We've seen grenade launchers. Now we're seeing IEDs on the border. So in Texas and in Arizona. So, the game is changing. A lot of tripwires have been activated in tradecraft on the cartel side of how they're approaching and acting on the border. With the smuggling, not just drugs but humans too, because now humans have far surpassed the amount of money that's being made because they get the money right away when you're smuggling humans. Drugs, you got to wait for it to be delivered to its location, and then they receive the money. The money is automatic unless you don't have it, and then until you pay that money off. And a lot of that happens also. So, Jason Jones has covered that, where they put wristbands, different colored wristbands on people in Texas to tell you where you're going, identify the cartel that's transporting you and moving you, and the location that you're being moved to, or stash houses, or if you owe money or not. Those colors and those wristbands signify different things. So some of our colleagues have talked about it in the past.
Yeah. People don't really understand the cartel does take credit.
Oh yes,
and they
want credit. They're very flamboyant about what they're doing. So
that's exactly right. So in regards to the border, are you seeing just a steady flow still? Is it increasing or decreasing? And are there certain hotspots that we should pay attention to?
Yeah, so Arizona is definitely a hotspot, and the reason why Arizona is still hot for several reasons is because Texas is obviously doing something to shut their border down.
Yeah,
and they're forcing everybody west. The other part of that is the violence in Texas along the border is forcing people to go west also, so they're not walking into the barrage of bullets and war that's going on the other side in Mexico. The other reason why is there's no enforcement in Arizona. Nobody's covering the border. You can come and go across the border freely as you want, and you just wait for Border Patrol to come. So all the traffic is pushed that way. California, also the same thing. We're seeing a lot of uptick in, we call them exotics or special interest aliens. People from Arab countries, China, African nations. You're seeing all those people come through California and Arizona now. A lot of males, a lot of military-aged males from China, from Arab countries and African countries and even Indian countries. There's a lot of Indians coming across, and they're all military-aged men.
Now, what would your assessment of why military-aged men would be coming across, especially in that volume?
Well, so what people need to understand is this thing, and nobody really talks about it much, but this is all being facilitated by the CCP, the Communist Party of China. They've just used they've weaponized the cartels against the United States to destabilize the United States. China knows they can never invade us from the sea and hit our country and hit us that way. So the way they're going to attack us is they're going to destabilize our nation, and then they're going to flood our nation with people that are loyal to their cause. And that would be military-aged men that would be able to fight. If they were able to get armed, there could be an uprising very easily in our country, like we saw in Israel on the border.
Right. And so I keep hearing these things. I'm going to address it in chat, and maybe this will be the last time. They said Derek Johnson said he drove the border and he didn't see a lot of people. What gives? Well, it depends where you go to the border.
Yeah.
I can tell you I went to Sassabee, and there were over 200 people in Sassabee. Their stories align exactly with what Shawn says. They just walk over the border, they sit down, they camp out, and they wait 2 or 3 days sometimes more for the border patrol to pick them up and ship them and then put them wherever in the country that they feel is fit. So the great example is you can go to any place in the border that doesn't have anything going on, or you can go to the places where you know it's going on. That's a choice, in my opinion.
So there's different things that are happening on the Arizona border depending on where you are. So, like, if you want to see big groups of people, you're going to go to Sassabee and Arivaca, you're going to go to Lukeville, and you're going to go to Yuma. That's where they're pushing all the family units across. That's where you're going to see the women and the children and a lot of military-aged men. The places where you're not seeing people are the places where the gotaways are getting in the country. They're coming in camouflage and carpet shoes. These are guys that are criminals. They're people that don't want to be detected. They're trying to get as far into the country as possible without being detected. That's why they're wearing camouflage. That's why they're wearing carpet shoes. That's why they're led by a coyote to where they need to go to get picked up by a vehicle to take them to the destination that they're trying to go to. A lot of those people are military-aged men setting up operations and counterintelligence operations in the United States for nation states. And some of them are cartel operatives moving into the United States to set up operations, their drug operations and their smuggling operations in other states across the nation. Look, every state in the United States right now is a border state. Okay, the border is our biggest national security risk right now as of 9/11. From 9/11, this is the biggest national security risk to our nation right now. We have 160 countries coming into our country right now, and a lot of them are unfriendly. We don't have a lot of friends right now, so a lot of these people are coming in. They're setting up shop in the United States. They're collecting intelligence on our military bases, on the assets that we have here, communication, infrastructure, all that stuff, because when it goes to attack, that those are the areas that they're going to hit. Those are going to be the areas of interest that they're going to want to attack. And they're sending these people in to record all that information. I mean, we're seeing it with the Chinese. A lot of states right now are passing legislation in their states to prevent Chinese people, nationals, from buying property. And a lot of that property is being bought in farm areas and around military bases. Why? Because they're setting up cyber war. They're setting up, areas where they're going to attack us through cyber. And there's been numerous busts by the FBI and federal agencies where they've cracked down and found these places in different parts of the country where they're attacking our infrastructure through the cyber, the internet. So, that's the other thing of this. There's so many pieces to this puzzle that are going on. And then the funding part of it. Like, a lot of people don't know right now, China is heavily embedded in Mexico. The triad gangs in Mexico are laundering all the cartel money. So the cartels are making China rich in all this also because they're benefiting from this monetarily.
I think it's important you repeat that so everybody knows, because this is a huge deal about what the triad is doing in Mexico.
Yeah, the triads are the main source for money laundering in Mexico. They are heavily embedded. A lot of them are married into cartel families. A lot of people don't know this, but there's big Chinese communities and Asian communities in Mexico, and a lot of them are married into different families and the population in Mexico, and they're very heavily tied to the Mexican cartels. Not only are they laundering money now, but now they're building factories to make precursor chemicals for methamphetamines and fentanyl. So now you don't have to bring it across the ocean. They're going to manufacture it right in Mexico. Right. So that's a huge threat to us.
Now, you mentioned the FBI, which I'm openly not a fan of. I've had run-ins with the FBI, but you've had some good work with them also, isn't that?
Agencies, DHS and FBI on the private side.
All right. It's good to hear that they're doing some good work. So I can't hammer them all the time.
No, there's some good guys on the line agent side of things on the lower end. It's the bureaucracy of the FBI that's corrupt. There's a lot of good guys at the line agent level that want to do good, and they're trying to make a difference. It's just that their hands are tied because the bureaucracy of the FBI is corrupt, and it's been weaponized against American people.
Well, the upper management all the way across seems to be fairly corrupt in a lot of the middle management, and then you get to the rank and file, and it's hit and miss. Because I've met some good FBI agents, and I've had one of two that were in my house, and one of them's not good, and one was good, and they worked together. So, and that was my opinion. So interesting enough, with everything that's going on top of the border, what gets missed is that's also a diversion for the real serious stuff that comes underneath the border via tunnels. And I'm talking munitions, armaments, the high value massive drugs are still going underneath the border. Mm-hmm. I'm wondering if part of the whole thing about getting everybody to flood the borders is also a diversion, because it repositions our focus somewhere when a lot of stuff's going on underneath. What's your opinion on that?
So I know there's a lot of tunnels. We get them usually in Nogales, Yuma, and San Diego, an area, big city metropolitan areas that have both cities on both sides of the border, where they can come up into houses and warehouses and commercial properties. They're known, and they look for those things because they know they're a threat, because you can conceal what you're bringing into the country. I mean, that's how you would bring it. You'd bring it through a tunnel. You wouldn't cross it across the border between the ports of entry, because we have infrastructure in place that could detect that kind of stuff. So you'd want to bring it underground. So, it's better to bring that dangerous stuff through tunnels, but sometimes they get caught, sometimes they don't. But Nogales and parts of Texas, not so much Texas, because Texas, you have the Rio Grande you have to go under, and it's pretty impossible to go under a water source to a tunnel unless you go down far enough. But, in Sassabee, we even think that there's tunnels out in the middle of the desert that just come out in the middle of the desert, and you can pop up in the middle of the desert somewhere and be home free and not have to worry about leaving a track or a trail across the border. You can't be traced then, because you're in the middle of the desert. You just pop out of the weeds and the trees, and you go about your way. And then if you're lucky, you make it to your vehicle that's going to pick you up, and you're in the country, and you're already in. So so a lot of that's happening too, but mainly those tunnels are happening in places like Calexico and Mexicali, Yuma and San Luis, Nogales and Nogales, San Diego and Tijuana. That's the areas, because you have a metropolitan area on both sides, and it's very easy to conceal their digging and their tunneling.
Amazing. So, a Robert, in the background, if you have any questions, just put your hand up or something, or finger, and then I'll announce you so we can bring you in. My mind reading days are over. It hasn't worked out in the past. So Shawn, interesting enough, you kind of just hit on this of how the cartel can just freely come across the border. I ran into that personally. We had an issue with a guy. We were taking pictures of him. He's taking pictures of us, and then he didn't like something, and he walked from the Mexican side over to the American side.
Yeah.
He actually talked to a group of people that were on the ground waiting, pretty much gave him the don't talk to them, and then he went back over to the other side while his buddy had a rifle. So I mean, if for people to think this isn't real, it's more than real.
Oh yeah, it's very real. I mean, we've had smugglers come across the border and hold even the NGOs to steal their food and water to get supplies from them on the border road. So I mean, and we've captured them many times in the United States. They're all over the mountaintops in the Coronado National Forest in Arivaca. They man the mountaintops in the Arizona National Forest and act as air traffic controllers to move the dangerous drugs and the high valued persons that they're trying to move into the country to, get them smuggled, because those people pay a lot more money to get in the country. I mean, SIA, or an exotic, as we call them, you could pay upwards to $1 million, depending on who he is, if you're trying to smuggle him to the country. But I mean, normally you're paying anywhere between $25,000 and $50,000 to get a Arab or a Asian or a African person into the country that has money, and he wants to get in undetected. They smuggle those people in, and they give them a guide, and they get an escort to the border, armed escort, and they're brought into the country because they're paying a lot of money to get in, and they're going to make sure that they get to their target.
Yeah, they're the VIP prospects.
Yes, very much so.
Interesting. It was refreshing to see the Border Patrol Union actually come out with a strong statement. And I've talked to a few Border Patrol officers. I'm sure not even close to how many you have. And there's a lot of apathy there, and the consistent message I keep getting from them, which frankly is frustrating, is we don't want to lose our pension. If we step up, we're gonna get fired if we try to go against it. And I have a huge issue with that.
I do too. So and I'm very vocal about it. If you're not standing against unlawful orders, no matter what branch of the government, and if you're seeing illegal things or participating in the treasonous acts against our country and helping the demise and the fall of our nation, you're just as guilty as the person ordering that if you're following those orders and carrying out through. Sometimes you just need to make a stand. Our forefathers put their lives and their fortunes on the line and did what they had to do for this nation. And when you're an employee, or you're in the military, or you're in law enforcement, your job is to protect the people that you're sworn to protect. The Constitution was written for we, the people of this country, and those are the people that you're sworn to protect. And when you're no longer protecting them, you're just as guilty as the people that are ordering you to carry out unlawful orders.
Right, agreed.
But Shawn, let me pop in. Just let me expand on that just for a moment. Lewis had brought this up, and really poignantly too. It's like the reason that they're not stepping up is because they're holding their salary and their pensions over their head. They say if they step up, they will lose that.
Okay, but the question you have to ask, if you're that person that's saying that, is what kind of future are you leaving for your children?
Exactly. I know that.
Aren't your children and the generations after that worth more than that pension? What kind of legacy are you leaving for your family afterwards? How do you go to meet your maker at the end and stand in front of God and say, I did everything I was supposed to do? No, you're not. You're not standing up for what's right and what's righteous, and doing the right thing is even doing it when nobody's looking.
Absolutely.
So true.
And
Yeah.
the reality is, as Burke said, evil thrives when good men do nothing.
Exactly.
And we are in the good men do nothing phase.
Yes.
That's for absolutely sure.
Yep. I mean, come on, guys. This is why I do what I do. I've spent, millions of my own dollars to defend my nation. I mean, I've wore 2 uniforms and taken 2 oaths 2 different times, and I'm still doing what I need to do to protect my country because I have kids and I have grandkids, and I want to be able to look at them when I'm on my deathbed and say, I tried my best to do what I can to make this a better place for you
Mm-hmm.
to grow your children and to raise your family. And if I'm not doing that, then I haven't done justice for my family, and I'm not leaving a legacy for anybody.
Yeah, agreed. Shawn, what would you recommend to the people watching how they can make a difference?
It's time to stand up. It's time to stop talking, and it's time to start demanding action. Like everybody's waiting for the election to pan out to fix this thing. Like we can fix this thing now. We can put a lot of pressure going to local town hall meetings and making your voice civil disobedience. Martin Luther King said it best. Civil. You don't have to get violent, but if you show up in mass and show your disdain for what's happening, they don't have any choice to listen. A million people show up on the front lawn of the White House and say enough's enough. Do you think they're not going to listen?
Yeah,
well, that's what it's going to take.
Yeah, people will go, well, look what happened to the J6ers, and I say, okay, guys, that's a psyop. You had 2 million people there. Yep. little over 1,000 got arrested, but the excuse was most of them went in. I was at J6, and we know why I haven't been arrested. It's because I had video that we were actually saving lives, and that's the last thing they would want to do is put that on the forefront for people to see. So what happens though is, where I think where we really need to show up is at the state capitals. Because the state capitals, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, and California, actually can interject. I believe the National Guard and the sheriffs, if I'm right, can step up if the sheriff has that territory. Is that wrong, or help me out here?
Well, the governor. So it's in our Constitution in Texas and in Arizona that the governor can use whatever force necessary if the federal government refuses to protect our borders against invasion, then the state has sovereignty to act on its own. And Arizona, I think they even take it a step further. If the state government doesn't do what they do to protect the border from invasion, the citizens can stand up and protect the border itself.
Right. Yep. Absolutely. So, what are the hot spots right now on the border that you see and that we should be paying attention to?
So in Texas, Laredo's really taking a hit. Laredo's there's a lot of drug smuggling still going on. There's a lot of weapons going back and forth. It's not so many, but not as many as Tucson. Tucson leads the country right now in the amount of fentanyl coming into the nation and the amount of people coming into the nation. Tucson sector is number one, hands down right now. And I would say Arizona by far is the biggest national security threat to our border apparatus and our national interests right now.
Yeah, hands down. Well, in Arizona, actually in Tucson, isn't the sheriff there complicit in this?
Yes, in 2 counties. In Santa Cruz County, the sheriff there is a retired DEA agent, and he's very corrupt, and he has a hands-off approach, and so does the sheriff of Pima County. The sheriff of Pima County just met with the NGOs because the NGOs are getting so much pressure from outsiders now that the sheriff vowed to protect and help the NGOs protect against the citizens and the media and the political people coming down there to keep them at bay and to keep them away from what they're doing down there.
Yeah, interesting enough, we had a run-in with the NGOs and the so-called charities, charitable organizations down there that were trying to protect the illegals when they cross and coaching them on how not to answer our questions. They are absolutely uh, treasonous in my opinion.
So let me tell you about the people that are working to help bring the migrants across, the illegal migrants across the border. The Antifa people that burned down half of Portland and burned down all the cities during the riots through our nation. Those are the same people that are participating on our border. Those are the same people that you're going to see in those camps. Those are the same people you're going to see working in Tucson at those hotels. They're all Antifa people that hate our country. They want anarchy. They don't love this country, and they'll do anything they can to destroy it. Now, look, there's several different charity organizations that are facilitating the illegal smuggling of humans across the border, and that's Catholic Charities, the Unitarian Church of Tucson, the American Red Cross, Facilitators, Las Palmas, the Samaritans of Green Valley and Tucson and Suarita. These are all organizations that are working to facilitate and take care of the immigrants across the border.
Yeah, in fact,
so that's a big lift.
Oh, it's huge. It's just another incentive to come across. I mean, yeah, I couldn't go anywhere on the border where there was an opening and not see a Red Cross blanket laying on the ground,
or a Catholic Charities blanket, purple blankets and white blankets with red crosses on them. That's what you'll see over there.
Yep. They have water filling stations, everything you can imagine. Now, let's get into the nitty gritty. Isn't there a war of sorts on the border right now, on the other side?
In Mexico right now, between Nogales and Yuma or Mexicali, the Sinaloa cartel is splintered. There's several different factions within the Sinaloa cartel that are fighting each other for control, because the Aravaca, the plaza between Nogales and Yuma, let's just face it, there's billions of dollars being made in that corridor. It's actually nicknamed Cocaine Alley, and Representative Thomas Tiffany just renamed it Fentanyl Freeway. Because the amount of drugs and the humans that are coming through that corridor, last year they estimated that the cartel off of human smuggling alone made $500 billion. I would say that number's more over $1 trillion because of the people that we don't know that came into the country and that paid to get it here. That's not including the drug smuggling that's going on and the drugs that are coming across, the money. That's just money accounting for human smuggling side, and that's on the light end of things. That's not even the real total. So I would say that the cartels are netting what Mexico's GDP, I think, is 1.6 or 1.7 trillion dollars a year. I would say the cartels are either surpassing that or right at the same level.
Oh, absolutely agree. We did a documentary on this called Cages, and we could easily find $1 trillion. It was like simple. And the whole time, which really frustrated us, the best guess was $100 billion publicly. We're like, no. No. We've tracked it down as well. In fact, if you add up,
to wipe out a generation of our people. And literally it is. All
right. So we've discovered, and with Mike Gill's help and discussions I've had with them, it appears that the cartels are also using attorneys on the U.S. side of the border to launder money through real estate. Do you have any evidence of that?
Well, and that's part of the Chinese program to launder money. So they have a mechanism. There's actually a documentary on this on YouTube, and you can watch it. I will find the name for you and get it to you. But it explains how there's a mortgage scheme going on for laundering money. So the cash never leaves the United States. It stays here, and it makes it back into Mexico without ever leaving the United States. And,
right.
And they're using mortgages to do that.
And I
and
know,
Trump.
you believe the CCP is a big part of it, which I do. The hidden entity that nobody talks about is the American cartel, and the American cartel are the Fortune 1000 companies that fund this stuff. And we've already caught a bunch of these companies do it. And the way they take the money and then they throw it to New Hampshire, and then you can, as soon as it hits New Hampshire, anybody can get it, and it's virtually
Yep.
untrackable.
Yep. Yep, and let's not make no mistake about this. Okay, this problem doesn't get as exacerbated as it is without help from the inside. Okay, they do it in Mexico. Mexico has government officials paid off. They have prosecutors paid off. They have lawyers paid off. And if you don't fall in line with them, they do the same thing in the United States. They have politicians on their payroll. They put a gag order on Chapo's trial because he started naming Americans that were on his payroll after he got done naming the Mexican president and all that stuff. There are people on this side that are helping the cartel and taking money from them, so that makes their job a lot easier once their product and their people and their operations get to the United States.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. So, with all this doom and gloom, is there anything good going on that you can talk about?
I think 2024 is a year where it either comes to an end or starts to come to an end, or it blows off and we're in a full-blown crisis in the world. And I'm hoping it goes the way I want it to, as far as who comes president, and they really roll their sleeves up and we get dirty and get rid of this problem and start fixing it, because it's going to take decades to fix what has been broken in the last 4 years. The damage that's been done, it's going to take decades to fix. I know they're talking about mass deportations of people and all that stuff. If that happens, that's great, but I don't think we're ever going to find and get everybody and round people up. The logistics behind that is, to get 9 million people out of this country, you can imagine what our airspace looks like now with just commercial airspace, with people moving about the nation from city to city. And then you add another 9 million people that you're deporting from here to other nations, and what kind of air traffic that looks like. Yeah. I wouldn't want to be in an airplane in the sky with that many planes in the sky, because it's just going to be chaos. But if it happens, and it happens slowly, and it's at a slow pace, I know that they said that was one of the things that's going to happen. But honestly, I really think people need to start making noise. They need to get angry, and we're not angry enough, and we don't have any more time. Like, if we don't start doing and starting this cleanup process now before the election, we're screwed when the election happens. That's why we're doing what we're doing, because I can't wait for a savior to come in 2024 to do it. I think we need to be doing what we're doing now and trying to put an end to it, and finding their networks and finding their infrastructure and putting wrenches in it and slowing it down, so that when it is time to get it and attack it fully, it's going to be a lot easier for us to do that.
Yeah, I would agree. And the reality too is, with the deep state cabal, guys, I predicted this. I don't think there's going to be a November election. They will find a way. Somehow the good guys are going to have to do something, because I think the deep state cabal will find a way through the War Powers Act or something else and then we're in a world of hurt. So yes, we the people have to step up now and pressure everybody. I would say pressure them more locally near the border than in DC, because in DC they're just a bunch of puppets anyways.
Yeah, so there's no difference between a coward and somebody that's a coward and somebody who has a lot of courage. It's just finding that heart to step up and do the right thing. But cowards and courage are made the same way. It's just that, that one person decides that he's going to do the right thing, and they can no longer make them. And the money that we're making is not enough. And the government's doing this to us, and rightfully so. We're the reason why it's happening, because we haven't stood up as a people and stopped this. And we need to stand up, and we need to stop what's happening. We need to voice our voices and put a stop to this. And if we need to do civil disobedience, I mean, we have a Second Amendment for a reason. I'm not advocating for that. But the whole reason for the Second Amendment was, it's not to go hunting. It's not to protect your home. It's to take back a government that's turned tyrannical. And if this is not a tyrannical government, I don't know what is.
Yeah, I would agree. And let me just tag on to the Courage statement, folks. If everybody has fear, the difference is some people feel the fear and freeze, and some people recognize the fear and push through it anyways.
Yep.
That's different, and that's what courage is. It's not saying that you have no fear, because that's not
right.
that's ridiculous. It is like, oh shit, this is what I have to deal with. Yep. Okay, I'm going in anyways, because the reality, folks, do you want to be here 10 years from now when your child or grandchild is saying, "What did you do? What difference have you made?" I don't want to hear that from my kids or grandkids unless I have a positive, okay, I did this, I did this, I did this, I did this. But if it's a disaster and they were to ask somebody that didn't do anything, you're going to have, that's your reckoning. And that's going to be a big, big deal. Robert, did you have another question in here?
I actually did. There's one thing that, Shawn, you mentioned San Diego. We hear very little about the San Diego crossing, the San Diego border. There's almost no news whatsoever. And I'm thinking, well, wait a minute, this is a sanctuary state. They're not doing anything down there. What's going on down at that border?
Yeah, and the bigger quiet is New Mexico. So you never hear anything about New Mexico. I mean, you're hearing things about California now because Jacumba is blown up, and you have all those Chinese nationals and all those Africans coming through Jacumba, California, which is, I believe it's an Imperial County, which is the county next to San Diego. So it's very close to San Diego. But the California border, they have a double fence all the way through California. So if you get over the first fence, you have another fence that you're going to be running in between, and Border Patrol usually catches you. They have a good security system in California, and it was designed that way because of all the wealthy people there and all the money there. They wanted it that way. So not that they don't have a problem there. Their problem is just not as bad as it is everywhere else. They have a handle on it. And it's manageable, but it's not manageable anymore because now we have Jacumba, where there's a big hole in the fence, and now the word is out and everybody's coming through there. So New Mexico, you never hear anything. Nothing. You will hear nothing about New Mexico ever. And you don't hear. I mean, I've been in New Mexico and I've seen what's going on in New Mexico, and you never see anything or hear anything. Everybody talks about Texas, they talk about Arizona, and they talk about California right now, but you're not hearing anything about New Mexico. And I think New Mexico is the hidden gem for the cartel because nobody's talking about it. And I think there's probably tons of people coming through Mexico and nobody just knows it.
You haven't been down through New Mexico, the border there, have you?
I've been to Deming. When I was working out of El Paso, we were working in Mount Cristo Rey, right on the New Mexico-Texas border, because all the Venezuelans were coming. This was before and after Title 42 happened. We were assisting some agencies down there to help with the problem and the influx of people. But they were, you would quietly hear it on the radio that there were problems in Deming, and they were. You'll never hear that on the news. You'll never see anything on the media about New Mexico. It's totally kept quiet.
Right. And here's why, and people don't want to talk about this, but the CIA runs the mainstream media through DARPA. I know people don't want to talk about that. That's exactly what happens. They get their message at 4:05 a.m. Eastern time every single day. Here's your talking points. Don't mention this. Don't mention this. So it's the game that's played where now that it's overboiling, you can talk about California, Arizona, and Texas, but be silent on New Mexico. So it's a lot deeper than many people think when you really, really dig into it, because I know a lot of people hate when I say this, but I'm sorry. I did an expose on this. The CIA is the enemy within right now. There may be a few good CIA rank and file, but I can tell you the upper echelon is ridiculous. Ridiculous. Shawn, Robert, I'm sorry. Did you have another question?
Nope. You can keep going.
Okay. Shawn, you have a phenomenal organization that's doing great work. I know some of the work you can't talk about, but talk about the stuff that you can so people understand what your organization is doing.
Well, we're collecting intelligence on several different platforms. Obviously, I'm not going to name the platforms or say how we're doing it because it would give away trade secrets, and then the cartel would counter that and they would start locking stuff down. And we need it to be open so that we can see their network and their infrastructure and to be able to see things that they don't want us to see. Them being flamboyant and open about what they're doing is a benefit to us, and it's a downfall to them. But we're using signals, open source, human intelligence. We're using different platforms, aerial assets. We're helping build cases for law enforcement agencies, detecting certain things that law enforcement would never detect unless it came across underneath their nose. We're finding it before anybody else does and letting the authorities know that it's happening.
And I know law enforcement's reached out to you, the good guys in law enforcement, several times because you're ahead of the game before they can even figure it out.
Yeah, and this is the thing that bewilders me. It's like we go and brief these agencies, or we go and show our capabilities and find out nobody is doing what we're doing. And I'm going, how is this possible? This is the United States of America. Like, we have the best intelligence apparatus in the world, and you guys aren't doing this stuff? Like, well, and it's because they have to abide by the Fourth Amendment. And when it comes to law enforcement, you have to have probable cause. But I'm not bound by those rules. So I'm not bound by the Fourth Amendment. I can come across information and give it to them in a manner that they'll be able to use for an investigation. I'm not going to divulge how we do that, but the information gets to who it needs to get to, and it helps with prosecuting and taking down these networks and these organizations.
And folks, just so you know, Shawn is hinting to what he does strategically, and he has to, but he does phenomenal work that you cannot even possibly imagine. Him and his company. Can you talk about your organization, and if people would like to support you, how they can do that?
Yeah, we're a for-profit company, so we do security, we do intelligence, and we do investigations, and we utilize those services. In the past, we made a profit off of different services, and we pushed that profit to fund some of the operations that we were doing to show law enforcement to see so they can see the value in what we do, and then eventually sell that product. I was trying to privatize the intel side of the house to law enforcement so that they can free up uniformed and sworn officers and put them back on the street, because there's a shortage of law enforcement officers throughout the nation. And to take a sworn officer and put him in an office in an intel capacity takes manpower off the streets, and it lessens your ability to do your job effectively when you have to take officers off the street. So I created a product where we would privatize that side of the house, vetting the people very carefully and getting them the clearances and everything they need to do the job with the agencies to make sure that they meet the requirements that they're asking for. And we use all military and former law enforcement people. If you have to have some capacity where you've worked in one of those three, either with the government or on the private side. If you have an extensive background in it, then we'll make an exception outside of the law enforcement and military stuff. But normally it's just all military and law enforcement, and it's guys that went to combat, some people that have experience in foreign theaters doing this kind of stuff. the guy that runs our intelligence branch of the company, he was a former military officer, and he's doing stuff, and everything that we were using on the government side, we have as a private entity.
And more.
Because those things, and we've paid for that with our own money, and we're providing that to different agencies and to the private sector, corporations, people that have interest in other countries and they need to know what's going on. We're able to use that intelligence for supply chain purposes, for people in manufacturing. You may have an American company in Latin America somewhere, and there may be, a hot zone where they're making products and they need to know what's going on. We can provide that intelligence to them because we have people on the ground with their eyes and their ears to the ground about what's going on. So we can get that information, gather it, put it in a report, and push it out, not just to law enforcement and government people, but to the corporate side too.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Is there some place that people can find you or your company, or do you want to keep everything under your hat?
They can go to our website. It's www.mayhemsolutionsgroup.com. That's where we're at. And it's not going to tell you everything we do. A lot of the stuff that we do is not published on there. But if you're one of those people or one of those agencies that we work for, we meet in private, and we give a private briefing and capability statement to those people so they can see what we're capable of doing. We actually show them live how we can, we do a demo for them and show them how we can, be force multipliers for their agency, and it's working. But with the government, everything is slow. There's a lot of red tape you got to go through in order to get funding. There's grants for the stuff that we do. So we could take donations, and just know that it's not going to be a tax deducted donation to the company. We're going to have to pay taxes on it, and so will you. Because we're not a 501c3.
Right. And then if somebody wants to volunteer, do you have any availabilities for that? Whether it's
because we don't do any volunteer stuff. Everybody that works for me is a paid employee, and you have to pass an extensive background check. Good. You have to prove your experience and your background. You have to apply for different licensures through the states that you're going to be working in, and you have to be qualified in order to obtain those licenses. So there's an extensive background through the FBI and the law enforcement agencies of those states.
Yeah, beautiful. Man, any last words for you, sir?
No, just we need people with courage to stand up and start doing the right thing and making your voices be heard and taking action to make sure that our government's being held accountable and they're doing the right thing for the nation and the people of this nation. Because if we don't do it now, it's we're already late in the game trying to fix things, but we need to start now. We can't wait till later to do it, and it's going to take all of us to do it.
Yep, Shawn, I really appreciate you a bunch for coming on and taking your time. I know you do great work in the background also, and thank you for your courage, and thank you for what you and your team does. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, and anytime you want to talk or need me to come on and talk about something, I'm more than willing to come.
All right.
Yeah, we appreciate you, Shawn. Thank you so much. And you're getting a lot of love in the chat room too.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah,
Thank you, everybody.
Sure. Ladies and gentlemen, that is Shawn Wilson from Mayhem Solutions Group, doing great work. That about does it for us today, although I see Robert back there. He's probably going to grab some spray off his desk, I have a feeling. Oh, did I beat him to it?
You beat me to it. I was just going to reach for
Robert says this is our sponsor, so I guess we have to do this. All right. So that's
looking younger every day. Every day we're looking good.
So as everybody knows, I'm about 124 years old, but I look 80, so it's doing really well for me. Folks, that's the best place to get glutathione on earth is with Neumi. Glutathione is fantastic for so many things health-wise. Plus, they have a product called Herms. They have the Swish that you ingest on you. We've seen miraculous results from this. As everybody know, Robert and I have had, are we up to about 150, 200 sponsors and products that come across our desk?
Let's just say it's several a week coming in now.
Right.
Yeah.
And we work with 3. because we don't care. And by the way, we've been offered a lot of money, a lot of green, and we turned it down because all we care about is, will it help we the people? So that's our dedication. So support Neumi, but more important, support your own health by getting Neumi. The link will be below in the description. Robert, thank you. Love you, brother, for your time. And why don't you talk about your show tomorrow?
Yeah, we have Bruce Poppy and I will be doing Unraveling the News. Tomorrow we'll do our normal weekly top 10 and we'll dig into the bigger stories that are happening out there and do what we normally do is dig beyond the headlines, because the headlines are great, but you probably want a little context to them too to really be educated. We're going to talk a little bit too about how do you talk to somebody on the other side. Phoebe had an interesting run-in with someone who's very much indoctrinated on the other side, and she was feeling very frustrated about it. I said, okay, so here's some things we can do. Plant some seeds. And she said, yeah, maybe I did plant some seeds. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, because I know a lot of us are running into that issue these days. So it'll be fun. Tomorrow, same time, same channel you're watching on right now. We will be back for you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, admins. Thank you, everybody that works with us. We couldn't do it without you.
Yep, we appreciate all of you. Thanks so much. And we'll